record on this computer. Any word from Grace Scott, Abby? Okay, we'll give her a minute or two more and then we'll get rolling. Laura was telling me she likes board games. What board games do we need to get before work week, my people?
No board games. All
No
debating.
no board games, all debating.
Yes.
You're going to use your lunch break to just cut cards?
Yep.
Admirable.
Just I'll sleep when I'm dead.
You'll sleep when you're dead. Yes.
We should get Clue.
I think I brought in Clue, but I'm missing some of my games that I brought in last summer. Like I may need to get a new copy of Super Fight, and I thought I brought in Clue, but I need to get them before work week for sure. I need to get them before the camp because it's fun to play at the camp too.
We can't get
Category.
Clue.
What's up?
I've never lost a game of Clue to my friends. So like
Oh,
if we get
wow.
Clue and I lose, like I can't play with you guys.
Oh wow.
My
Well, maybe
family
you and
is like
Abby,
so hardcore at Clue.
maybe you and Abby need to have a battle at Clue. My son always figures it out with like he'll have 5 clues and then he knows, and I'm like, how did you know? Like, what did
Yeah,
you do?
Anytime like my family plays Clue, we all come down with like full notebooks to like have notes in, and it'll last like 20 minutes.
Yes, there you go.
My dad doesn't use notebooks or like anything. We'll be using them. He just like remembers everything, and so he normally wins.
Goodness.
But
My goodness, that's crazy.
My ADHD could never.
Clue is good. I like catchphrase a lot, but I don't know how we're gonna do teams this year because usually we do men against women, and then men would be like Joey, TJ, Lee, and I against the 9 of you. So we'd be massive, and that doesn't even count Emily if Emily comes by. So there's 10 possibilities of people.
are all of our novices coming back?
Everyone that I've talked to has said they are coming back.
Is
Some of
Praise?
Okay, Praise said she was. If you were to ask me who I was the most worried about, that would probably be it. It would probably be Praise. I don't want to gossip too much about it, but they all said that they were coming back in some capacity or another. Some were more like, yeah, I'm really hardcore, and others were like, well, I'm coming back, if that makes sense. So, but I feel good about it, and I'm meeting with Alex Hudson tomorrow. He is the debater I'm trying to recruit out of my class. So we'll see if he is interested.
What year is he?
He's going to be a sophomore. I recruited another girl out of my class, but I think she just wants to maybe come by the meeting at the beginning of the year and see how things are. But yes,
go
ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know the topic paper like briefly mentioned this, but I definitely think this is like a fantastic topic for novice debate.
Yes, it is a good one. It is very clear cut, which is a good thing. All right, so I am going to begin. Let's see, what do I need to do? Share screen. Okay. So my starting point is that justice flows from a file full of cards. There's nothing better in debate, nothing better than beating a team who has beaten you previously on cards that you cut against their affirmative or cards you've cut against their negative position. It is a lot of fun. It is awesome. And it is how you get justice. And so researching is a lot of fun for me, and it's one of my most enjoyable parts about debate. And I'm going to try and talk to you about a specific strategy that you can utilize when you're researching that may help you. And obviously, all of you have done research before. So if there is some input that you have, some new trick or new wrinkle in one of the various search engines that you know, feel free to let me know. I know that I am long in the tooth, so to speak, and there may be some techniques and strategies that even I can benefit from. So feel free to jump in. Okay. So basic thoughts. I'm going to go through some basic thoughts about research. I'm going to talk to you about finding articles. I'm going to talk to you about effectively cutting cards and then writing front lines and extensions. Okay. Basic thoughts on how to cut a card. I think most of you all, some of this was targeted towards our novices from last year. I think you all know to do this, but you take a paragraph that provides a quotation that you find to be helpful. And so you open up a verbatim document and use F2 to paste a quotation. Laurel, do you use verbatim?
Yes.
Okay, good. Everybody else is using verbatim? Good. Okay. Rules, you have to take at least a paragraph. You have to have a continual card. You cannot use ellipses or take paragraphs from different parts of the article without cutting a new card. I believe I know of 2 debates that have literally been decided on this issue, that teams either didn't cut the whole card or left out part of a card and they lost the debate. More importantly than whether or not you're going to lose, it's an unethical thing to do. And I don't want to teach you to be unethical. I think debate teaches us a lot of ethical practices in competition, and we want to do that. And then you should highlight and underline what you want people to read. I do want you to highlight your cards. Some people might say, no, you need to make the debaters highlight their own cards, because if they highlight their own cards, they'll go through the file more. While that is true, if you had to highlight all of your cards, given the volumes of research that we're going to do, that would be problematic. So please do highlight the cards in a way that you want them read in the debate. Don't under highlight, don't over highlight. I think that if you watch Lee and Mai's cards, you'll get both the yin and the yang. Lee probably under highlights, I probably over highlight. And so somewhere in the happy middle, remembering that debaters have to present these cards in rounds. Okay. Format, author name, full date, qualifications, name of journal, article titles and quotes, article URL, retrieved on date, and your initials. So this was a card that Mary Grace cut last year, and Will Repko said this card was excellent. And for those of you that do not know Will Repko, I think Will has judged, oh, I think all 4 of you know Will. Even Laurel knows Will. He is a very strong researcher and very much commits himself to research. So for him to call a card excellent and to say it was part of his decision is really important. We want to cut good cards on this squad. If the debate comes down to cards, if the debate is close enough to where the judge is looking at cards, I want the judge to look at our cards with Baber. I don't want you to over tag your cards. Okay, so where do I go to do research? Honestly, I get most of my cards from Google, is the truth of the matter. So I took a topic that was being worked on and went through the steps I used to help you out. I researched the no accidental war assignment. So here is what I did. My first search was in Google. My first search was a shot in the dark. I didn't have any background information on this, and so I just shot in the dark. And I typed in the risk of a US accidental launch is exaggerated. So why don't you open a Google document and type in that search. And we'll see what we get. Oh, I typed in the URL. But I'll use the URL. And this article came up. The risk of accidental war is highly exaggerated by Julian Alouette. And this was just a shot in the dark, but this came up, and this article is pretty good. It talks about rising tensions with China, etc. One of the things that once you get into researching something, you'll learn over time is you'll learn the words and phrases that are used in the literature base that you are researching. So every good research base, every sophisticated research base is going to have specific term of arts that they use, and you need to learn those terms of art. But this is pretty good, so I'm going to grab this article and I'm going to put it in my verbatim. And of course, I'm going to get the URL, F2, get the article. Oops. And then I've got the article. Okay. So we're feeling pretty good. We've got an article that pretty much says exactly what we wanted to say. I've read through this and it says that accidental war, there's never been one in history and you can't point to one, etc. I'm a little worried about the qualifications of my author. Julian Alouette is just a staff writer. And so while my first search in the dark did pretty well, I want to get some maybe better evidence on this claim. So let's move on. A way to get better evidence is to type PDF at the end of your search. And the reason why is that PDFs have more sophisticated literature when something is in a PDF, as opposed to just an article in a newspaper or a blog post. So let's give this one a shot. Oh, I'm going to teach you all about advanced search here soon. It'll change your life. Okay. So looking through this, the myth of accidental war, that looks like it could be pretty good. Okay. So that looks pretty good. So I'll take that one too. All right. Now, some things about PDFs. You might want to cut and paste by paragraph out of a PDF. A PDF usually will not let you get the whole article from cutting and pasting out of the PDF. You might want to invest in a PDF converter software. So I have a PDF converter software on my computer. You need to be careful with where you get these, because online some of them are scams. I got mine on Amazon and I'm more than happy to fund you all getting them on your computer. There may be a more surreptitious way to do this that, of course, I would know nothing about. The last thing in the world I would want you to do is to get some PDF software in a surreptitious method. So you need to think about that kind of thing, and be sure to cut to paste with paste2 into verbatim. But my PDF converter is one of my favorite things. It converts it into Word, and then you can just cut and paste out of it. Now I'm going to teach you how to use Google Advanced. Have any of you used Google Advanced before? Joey has used Google Advanced before. Okay, Google Advanced is one of my best friends. So what you can do is you can go Google Advanced and you can do an advanced search. Okay, so now I'm going to do an advanced search, and it allows me to modify the date of the search so I can get new stuff. So let's try, again, shooting in the dark. And you'll notice on last update, you can say, within the past 24 hours, within the past week, within the past month, or the past year. And depending on what you're researching, you may want to use different of these functions, okay? On something that it really doesn't matter if it's super timely, like I don't want my accidental war card to be from like 2018 or something, but if it's within the last year, that's pretty good, right? Meanwhile, if I'm researching the state of the economy or something more recent, I might want to use the past month or the past week. And yes, I use the past 24 hours function. When I'm at a tournament with you all and I'm doing politics updates, I literally use the past 24 hours feature on Google Advanced. So this is definitely your friend. So we're going to try past year, see what we come up with. Okay. The problem with accidental war. I'm going to decline all those. Okay. So first published online, February 2nd, 2023, the problem with accidental war. I'm going to need to get full access to this article though, so I may have to go through some hoops to get it. But I know I'm on the right path now because I can find articles from 2023 that say the problem with accidental war. Okay. The psychology of nuclear brinksmanship, that looks good too. Artificial intelligence and nuclear weapons. All kinds of good stuff from that. Now, this is something that I noticed. So I'm reading along, I'm skimming these articles, and this says, in order to avoid any accidental nuclear war and its attendant risks, we urge all nuclear weapon states and all NATO members to de-alert. So let's go grab this real quick. We're going to grab this article. But now I have a new idea. Now, not only am I going to have cards for my front line of no accidental war, I can cut a counter plan. So I'm going to grab this article real quick. But now I'm going to research de-alerting because I got the idea from that article. Do you see how we're starting to broaden out with our research as we go along? So why don't we try de-alerting solves accidental. Well, it seems to be happy with that. De-alerting solves accidental nuclear war. The nuclear weapon states by adopting no first use, de-alerting, etc. So it looks like I didn't do great on this one, and I think I know why. It's because I'm still in Google Advanced. So let's just go to regular Google. Okay. All right, this one's very old, 2001. 3 steps to avert an accidental nuclear war. First, countries with nuclear weapons should continuously review and protect against cyber threats. Second, the U.S. and other nuclear armed states must work together on areas of existential common interest, reducing the risk of nuclear error. Removing U.S. and Russian nuclear weapons from Cold War era prompt launch postures would help solve and hit those targets a minute, would eliminate hair triggers and increase decision time, would set an example for all states with nuclear weapons. Military experts in each of these countries should be mandated by their leaders to explore this and other options that would give them more time to make fateful decisions about nuclear use. So now we're on a different path, but we're doing well. So I'm going to grab that article and keep going. So what I'm trying to teach is you can start from a very basic search and begin to broaden outwards as you do your research. So, branching out. This article said, in order to avoid any accidental nuclear war and its attendant risks, we urge all nuclear weapon states and all NATO member states to de-alert all their nuclear weapons. Too short for a card, but now let's research a de-alert counterplan. Now, when I turn in my file, I'm going to have a bunch of cards that say there's no accidental war, and then I have a counterplan along with it to solve the risk of accidental war. So I tried the counterplan try for de-alerting nuclear weapons. Another thought. One of the articles said accidental war is a myth. And so maybe we can try that search. Okay, that says nuclear deterrence is a myth. Probably not what I'm looking for. The myth of accidental war, we found that one before. 5 myths about nuclear weapons. 5 myths about a controversial nuclear weapon. Is nuclear war inevitable? Maybe not the best search in the world, but I'm getting into the literature and doing well with that. Okay, so let's recap some things. First, if you're doing a search on harms takeouts, I have found the words exaggerated or myth to be good shots in the dark until you get more sophisticated in the literature. Second, think about putting things in quotes so the exact term appears. Third, use the PDF trick to get better articles and know how to use Google Advanced. And the fifth thing is keep trying. This is more of an art than a science. I've had research assignments that I've worked on before, and the first day I basically got nothing. And it gets frustrating and it's hard. And lots of times you can just think of a different search term or think the way that these authors are thinking, and you can do well. So just to give you an example of something I've done before, I was working on an assignment that was kind of dense, and I wanted to know how I could explain it to the debaters better. And I went to the golf course and hit balls for an hour and then came back, and my brain had thought of some new ideas. One of the reasons why it's good to do debate every day, and I borrow this from Ahilan Arulanthanam, who won the NDT and won some kind of Einstein Award for being a good immigration attorney, getting immigrants into the country. He says you should work on debate for 30 minutes to an hour a day. And here's the reason why. First, it's just good to have routines and it's good to research cards. But the second thing is your brain is going to think about what you were doing during its spare time. And so when you're driving, I get a lot of good ideas when I'm driving. When you are eating, you might get some good ideas. Sometimes I get some good ideas in the shower of just thinking about what you are doing. Because if you do it every day, your brain during its off time will think of things that you may not be able to do just at that moment. But keep trying. I know it's hard and I know it's difficult, and I know that I've done it longer than you have, so I may have some inherent advantages, but you all also know technology better than I do, so you probably have some advantages yourself. Okay, researching a specific case neg. This assumes you have the other team's case. I should have mentioned this to begin with. First, check the wiki. Second, better than checking the wiki, because they may not have updated their wiki. Research on Tabroom who they debated or the judge that they had, and get the speech docs from that round. Very vital if you can to get the speech docs from the round. Lots of times you can find the judge's email address in their paradigm. If you strike out there, come talk to me, because one of the things you've probably figured out from being around me and being around the community, I know a lot of people in the community, and I have a lot of their email addresses. Or if I don't have them, I can get in touch with someone and get in touch with them. And so get the speech docs. Okay. First, you start with their articles. Track down their articles and put them in a doc. So have a big, huge doc with all of their articles. Second thing you do is recut specific cards. Recut the cards they cut, looking at paragraphs above and below for caveats and alternate causes. So, what do I mean? No good scholar says that things are absolutely going to happen. They always provide some caveats. They always say, but this might not be fully bad because of this reason, but etc. Depending on your faith in humanity and faith in the debate community, you may think this was done either unintentionally or intentionally. But lots of times the previous paragraph or the paragraph after their card disproves what they say. Second, alternate causes. Remember, they have to put a case together from a lot of different sources. And lots of times, like let's say they have a warming impact, for example. The rest of that article probably is not about how nuclear weapons decrease the risk of warming. It's probably about other things that can be done to decrease warming, or if we don't do those other things, warming will be triggered. And so those are some things to think about. So, example. Multiple alt causes to mega city collapse they don't solve. Sanford reads blue. This is from the Indiana case neg. Crib, AF author 19. I always like to kind of shove it in their face that your author doesn't believe what you say. But this is an example. So they've got their card down here about how mega city collapse is bad. Mega city failure is hard to predict, though it is not hard to identify those cities which are more risk than others. However, the timing of a collapse depends on so many variables, politics, weather, resources, wars, that it is difficult to predict the onset of urban crises. That's a pretty good neg card from their article that says this will happen for 4 different reasons that they don't solve. And that's a good way to drill down on their articles. So reread their articles. Things to look for: advantage takeouts, caveats, and alternate causes. B, solvency. Is their case sufficient to solve? Sawyer would almost always start with the solvency part of an article, which is usually near the end of the article, and say, is it advocating their case? Disads. The beginning part of an article, what I call the inherency part of the article, has reasons why we haven't done this. And usually there are 2 reasons why good people don't do things that's a good idea. And they are politics and money. Politics, because some powerful interest group opposes them, which means you have a link to politics disad. Money, because we don't have the money to do it. So that's your link to the spending disad. That's true in debate and real life. The reason why good people don't do good things is because of politics and money. So you want to research, why haven't we done this already? What is the hold up of doing this? And it may be that they can't get the bill through Congress. It may be that it costs too much money, etc. Counter plans. Does their article even advocate their plan? Sometimes their advantage cards offer different solutions. Remember, they're probably putting their affirmative together from multiple different places. And so they look for an internal link card, or they look for an impact card. And in that internal link or impact article, there will be a lot of counterpoints. Last thing is critiques. Maybe their evidence or their article rests on a bad assumption, and you could critique that. So just as an example, I researched, let's see, I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to go find this. Always dangerous whenever you know, okay. Can't do that. Okay. So one of Monmouth's cards talked about an environmental holocaust. And so I did a little researching on comparing environmental issues to the Holocaust. And I found a really good article that said it is counterproductive, offensive, debases genocide, etc. There's a lot you can get out of those articles. So don't be afraid to cut a K out of their articles too. And I already had Joey do some work on putting that in our arsenal of things to do. Okay. Next thing, track down footnotes. Joey already mentioned this earlier. A good scholar will quote people who disagree with them. In fact, it's pretty much the case that they will disagree with them. So the first thing you do when you track down footnotes, you've read the affirmative article. Let's say it's a good article for the affirmative and you start to get a little scared. You're like, this actually really does say what they want it to say. But the author's going to footnote like, despite what Pack and Montgomery and Blackwell say, this is a good idea. We'll go track down the footnotes of Pack, Montgomery, and Blackwell to get more articles that say the opposite. Last summer, when I was researching antitrust, I was brand new to the literature. I had no idea what I was looking for. And so I would find an AF article, and then I would find from the AF article, I would read the AF article, and then I would track down the footnotes for the neg, and that's where a lot of my research came from. B, look for authors that say the opposite and research those authors. So in addition to going to the specific article that the footnote says to go to, you can also research other things by that author. Here's an academic reality. Most authors get their tenure by writing multiple articles about the same thing. They specify in that field. And professors have an academic resume called a vita, a curriculum vita or CV. And I can go to Charles L. Glazer and let's see what he's written. The role of effects, saliencies, and norms in cyber war doctrine, getting out of the Gulf. Should the United States stay in the Gulf? Should the United States reject MAD? Damage, limitation, U.S. nuclear strategy towards China. Now, I had Glazer quoted by someone else, and now I've found that Glazer talks about U.S. nuclear strategy towards China. Correspondence, grand bargain or bad idea, U.S. relations with China and Taiwan. Maybe that's a counterplan that would help me solve for China and Taiwan. And I got there by researching that author. Footnotes are gold. You might find 5 articles from one article. So it's tempting when you're researching, and I've done it before too. When you're researching and you're trying to do something quickly, you copy and paste the whole article except for the footnotes, and you don't read the footnotes. I'm going to encourage you to read the footnotes and track down those footnotes and to be a good researcher when you do it. Okay, next thing I'm going to talk about is advantage front lines. You make a numbered list of different arguments against the advantage. And I'm going to show you an example in just a second or two. And then make extension blocks. Have a block for every number in the front line. An extension block should extend the card by number, author, site, explain the reasons in the card, and have more evidence supporting the general thesis. So you want to make the 2 NC's job on the case as easy as you can. So if you have number 1, no accidental war because there will be no technical mistakes, you want to have an extension block that talks about all of the reasons in that card and then more evidence that supports that below it. So I'm using Laurel's file to do this. She said, no China war frontline. 1, China's not interested in war despite military advances. 2, China's threat lessens over time. Conflict is increasingly unlikely. 3, China's military is weaker. When you put your arguments in a frontline, number 1, put the best argument first. Number 2, each argument should be distinct. So this one is China's not interested in war. It lessens over time. The military is weaker, etc. Then you want to, for each one of these, 1 and C number 1, China not interested in war, increased defense spending. China knows a war would be catastrophic, and neither China nor the US would benefit from a war. For each card, you do that. So research steps. Do a Google search. Consider exaggerated or myth for case assignments. Here's another trick I have learned. Human survival is usually better than human extinction. Debaters use the word extinction. Most authors don't. While you will find it from time to time, you can do human survival, and it frequently comes up better. 2, consider solves for counterplan evidence. De-alerting solves accidental war. You can also do solutions for accidental war if you're shooting in the dark. So if I'm researching accidental war, I can just say solutions for accidental war. Or if I'm researching the proliferation, I could say solutions for proliferation. Because remember, as the NEG, we're not constrained to the topic. So we can come up with any counterplan to solve those things. 2, branch out. See if some counterplans or new ideas come from research. If you're slogging at the beginning and you're reading AF articles and not coming up with very much, remember, you are learning. You are learning what terms of art are used. You're learning how the advantage functions, etc. And I get it. It's tough to slog, and it's summer. You're like, I'd rather be outside playing than researching here in the house. But I think if you spend a little bit of time every day, you'll get the benefits in the long run. One of the things about research is it's difficult sometimes to draw the connection between I was at home at my kitchen table in July, and I cut this card and I won a debate in December on this card, because the work in debate happens separately from the debate itself. You may have had times in your career where you've won on a card that you've cut. But just as a specific example from this year, we were in the squad room with the novices late at night, 7 or 8 p.m., and we researched the link card to George Mason's corporate personhood affirmative. And then at ADA Nationals, we won an elim on that card. A lot of debate is like that. There's a separation between the work and the success. And so it's difficult to draw that connection. But I can point to numerous examples where someone took the time to cut a card and then they won a debate on it much later. But you need to psychologically draw the connection between those two things. Also, when someone else wins a debate on your card, make sure that you give props to whoever did that for you. So just as another specific example, Joey did some research against Houston in the middle of the year, and then the novices debated Houston at ADA Fall Tournament, and they won multiple debates on his piece of evidence. I think you should talk to whoever did the research and say, good job, because lots of times you don't get a reward for cutting cards because someone else on the team benefits from it. So be sure to tell them, hey, great job, Joey. We really won because of those cards. And that will reaffirm people and help that psychological connection. So 2, branch out, see if some counterplans or new ideas come from research. 3, use their articles. Obviously, we'll do that more when the season starts. But there are a couple of things we're going to have even before the season starts. 1, we have the topic paper. So make sure that you go to the topic paper and look for things. 2, when the novice packet comes out, we'll have articles in the novice packet. I know a lot of you complain that the novice packet is not very good, but remember, it's a starting point for articles where you can branch out even if you think that people don't cut cards very well. And then 3, once the season starts, you can go to the wiki or you can go to judges of the team and track these things down. So use their articles, recut them to find alternative causes, prove why their plan is inadequate to solve, look for disad links, counterplan solvency, and critique links in their articles, and then go and research those things. Next, start early. If you have an assignment due in 2 weeks, you should probably start on it now. Debate teaches us real-world skills. Spending 30 minutes a day is better than waiting to the last minute, and breaks help you think. So as another example, when we were preparing for the NDT in 2011, when Dan and Logan made it to the Sweet 16, we came in every day over spring break preparing for the NDT. And one of the things we would do is we would take breaks to go outside and throw a frisbee or something like that. And one of my best ideas that won them a debate at the NDT against Texas was germinated from throwing a frisbee outside when I had just been working on the blocks. Your brain works subconsciously and it can do a lot for you. The last thing is ask for help. Ask for help. One of the reasons why it's good to start early is because you can really get help from people. The coaches and senior debaters have a lot more experience. They may be able to help you. Do not be embarrassed. We will not judge you. I will be happy that you are working hard. Even if you research for like 3 or 4 days and you come to me and say, I have no cards, or I only have 1 card, we can help you. I'm not going to be upset with you because you are frustrated. Let's say you're struggling because you have a lot of school or you have some other obligations that have prevented you from doing much debate work. And you come to me a week before the tournament and say, honestly, I've been really busy with this thing and it's been hard for me to cut cards. Don't be embarrassed by that. I view this as very pragmatic. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for us to have good things. And as a result of that, we want to help you the best we can. I'm not going to be like, Laurel is the only one in the squad who doesn't know this. I'm not going to be like at a squad meeting, Abby, why didn't you do your freaking assignment, lazy bum, or anything like that. That doesn't happen on our squad. We instead support and we affirm each other and we plan for the future. So we're not going to judge you. I'm not going to make a scene out of it, etc. We're going to do the best we can to support things. Be transparent. If you haven't found anything, that is okay. We can sit down and work together and find things. I know I've been researching for a long time, and Joey has been researching for a long time, and maybe you haven't researched for as long. That is okay. We can help you come up with things. Some of my best ideas come from other people. I'll talk with Lee in the squad room and I'll say, I'm working on this and I'm thinking about this, and then he has a different idea that stems off of what I said. Every single one of us has had difficulty at one time or another finding articles. Every single one of us. I've been there too. I've been in your shoes where I'm researching something that I don't know very much about, and I've got to do some reading and dig in before I understand. Lee always gives me the assignments of the wacky teams. So believe me, I've sat down the night before elims and said, half of this affirmative is in Spanish. What are we going to do about this? Half of this affirmative talks about this. And you've just got to do your best to come up with things. Now I want to ask you, what tricks have worked for you in the past to research? Anyone have any thoughts?
I've got a couple. They each might be like a little bit niche, but they've been like super helpful in the niches that like I've used them in. One of which is if you're researching something where like whatever topic you're researching really heavily overlaps with like something else completely unrelated. Like if anytime you try and Google what you're researching, like a bunch of articles of something else unrelated that just happens to share a lot of terms with it comes up, using like the feature of putting like minus, like the minus symbol and then a word in Google, makes like that term not show up in any of the search results, which can be like a really good way to filter something out. And then the other one, which was super helpful when I was cutting case negs to like a lot of critical AFs, is some of the best places to find cards that are like directly responsive to any like AF authors or like neg authors, if you're researching stuff for like anti-K cards for the AF, is look up book reviews of like the author or like authors that you're researching against. And like doing that, I've gone from like having like researching something where it's taken me 3 days to find like 1 or 2 good cards to finding like 5 to 7 really good articles that are way more responsive than anything that I found before in like an hour. So that's another thing that's been like super helpful for me.
That's a really good idea. I've never used that minus sign trick before. So can I do minus and have something in quotes, or do I just do minus in the term?
I think you can also use like minus and then like a phrase in quotes.
Grace Blackwell, I know you've cut some good cards over time. What are some of your strategies?
I like do searches pretty generally, I would say. I'm not like a tech guru or like super up to date with anything. But I know something that helps me a lot is I try not to get super dated cards. So something you could do on advanced search is just make sure you're putting in like finding it from this year. I know that I always start there because I don't want anything that I cut to be like super dated or anything like that. But I mean, I just use like pretty much the Google Advanced Search, and honestly, like I just send Joey any articles that I can't get access to. But yeah, I mean, one thing that I'm gonna really that's something that I really want to improve on this year is just my research. So
I think it takes a little time, and it takes a little sitting down and doing some deep reading. But I think when you do that, you'll be rewarded. Abby, have you come up with anything that you want to share as to a research tip that's helped you?
I mean, the way I do research, it tends to be during the year, not like before the debate year starts. And I go into their wikis and I find their articles and I cut evidence from their articles against them. That's normally and then Grace will like find research like separate contradicting their stuff, but like outside their articles. So,
Yep, I would say that 80% of a case neg can come from their articles. Sawyer would probably one up me and say that all he did was research their articles and found the problems with their cards. If you read back the unhighlighted parts of their cards, you will be in good shape a good portion of the time. And they get very frustrated because they can't indict the author. They're 1AC. Like, oh,
especially with like Hayes and stuff, when you read like all of their stuff, they normally don't like fully comprehend what they're talking about. So if you do more research and read more about their authors than they do, then I mean, yeah.
Laurel, you're a good researcher. What have you found out over time?
I don't know. All of this is new to me, so I have no research tips that we haven't already covered. Also, I'm still getting used to the having access to people's papers before you debate them. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you will find that it is a good thing. One of the best days of the year is the first day of the first tournament, and when you begin to see what all people are doing. And if we've done our homework well, and we will be like, oh, we have answers to that, or we have answers to that. And if we haven't done our homework well, it just means we're going to have a long night before elims cutting stuff to catch up. Let me give you one other tip. Yes, the inventorship half. Let me give you one other tip. I have noticed that right before a tournament, especially with politics updates, if I type in like Biden and political capital, I'll find a really good article right at the top. And it's because Google's search engine prioritizes what other people have done. And so sometimes you can get insights like if I type in Biden political capital and the first article is a really good article on, say, permitting reform or something like that, I'm like, somebody is researching this and I need to do it. And then you can find a lot of good stuff because, like I say, Google's search engines are designed to prioritize what people are researching. So feel free to dig in and research what other people do. All right. Hopefully this has been helpful. I've tried to provide a rubric as to how to do research. I will also tell you that the best research is planned research. Come up with time periods by which something is due. If you're anything like me, and maybe you're not like me, I need deadlines. I need deadlines in order to work. Because if I have a deadline, I will work harder than if it's like, oh, well, this is due sometime this summer. I'm always going to put that off. I'm always going to go to the golf course or swim or something like that, or put that off for a long time. So have deadlines. I think a good deadline to create is we're going to have a practice debate on this day with your cards. Well, you're pretty much forced to do your assignment then, because if you don't, you can't have the practice debate. So put some deadlines in for yourself. If that doesn't work for you and something else works for you, that's fine. But I really like Lee's system where he's making things due over time, because if we do this appropriately with enough time, then by the first tournament rolls around, we'll be in good shape. My goal, what I want to have happen this year for the summer assignments is I want to be largely done researching by the time our work week comes around, because I want to have a lot of debates during work week. I think that those long research sessions during work week are not necessarily very helpful, and I want to make sure we get a lot of debating in on this topic. So that's my goal, is to have most of our work done by the time the work week comes about. Okay. All right. Thanks for hanging in with me. I know research can be a little bit of a dry topic to discuss, but I think when you do good research, you'll really be appreciated for it. If you become a good researcher, not only are you going to have wins off of your own research, you're going to be very popular from other people on the squad, because they'll be like, Laurel, you cut this card and that was so awesome. And the judge said this card was good at the end of the debate. Thank you so much. We won because of the work you did. And that's the kind of synergy that we strive for on the squad. All right. Okay. I will let y'all go. I don't have a topic for next week. I know Lee wants to talk about some stuff at some point, but I want to do a little more doing some speeches with you all. Laurel, I know it's going to be a little bit of time because you still have that NSDA Nationals thing coming up. But I started a folder on Dropbox with summer practice files. The good news is, since we've researched this topic before, we have admittedly old cards which say things, but we have cards and we can make the arguments that we want to make, and we can start practicing. And I stole Michigan's old NFU 1AC, and that means we can read a 1AC and we can have responses to that 1AC. So those are the kinds of things that we can do now that we have some files. Incidentally, I also do some work on a high school topic for every year, and I have an updated politics disad, at least politics as of May 5th. And so we can start doing that as well. Because obviously we can't run the debt ceiling. Have we resolved this yet? Does anyone know if they voted to lift the debt ceiling or not?
As far as I've heard, they haven't voted to like lift it yet, but there was some deal that was reached between Biden and McCarthy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
there is
just
a deal. It's just not. It hasn't formally been raised yet.
all right. Well, we'll hope for the best. All right. Well, it's good to see you all. Thank you all for showing up. We'll have some other sessions. Like I say, I really want to work with you during the summer. I want you to do practice debates during the summer. I think Grace Blackwell and Abby McKibben would be the first to say that the speeches they did in the summer before their first year of college debate were extremely helpful. And so that's the kind of thing I'd like to do. All right. But I'll see you all later. Have a good Wednesday night.